Hello, welcome to the Art of Being Human. Today's guest is Josh Hendryx, the CEO of Phoenix Builders. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to be with you today. You're such a wonderful leader, such a purpose-driven leader. I love the work that you're doing, and I can't wait to dive in and let our audience hear all about you and what impassions you and all of that good stuff. Why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about your personal story and how you got to where you are here today?
Sure. So my personal story has been definitely one of challenge. Probably, I think something that's not typical for someone who's in my position at this point in life. I grew up in a single parent household where my father was a traveling salesman. And so most of my formative years, I either was with him while he traveled, or I spent a lot of time living with my grandparents. My grandfather was a welder for the steel mill in Sterling, Illinois. My grandmother worked the desk at a jewelry store in our local little town in Rock Falls, Illinois. And they were married at 8 when he was 18 and she was 16. And before his passing, we're married for over 60 years. So I feel very fortunate to have grown up during those formative years under their roof and under their guidance and tutelage. And I think that had a lot to do with some of the decisions that I made growing up. Went to private school my whole life. My dad had remarried later in life to my teacher, who was my second grade teacher, and then when I went from second grade to third grade, she was my third grade teacher, and so forth. So I always had my dad was president of the school board, and always kind of had that watchful eye over me. I'd spend a lot of time at school, but a big passion of mine was always that I wanted to serve in the military. So when I was a junior in high school, a recruiter came to my high school, and I had three younger siblings also, and my parents did not make a lot of money. My dad sold fasteners and so forth. So I knew that part of my ability to go on to university, go on to college, was to find a scholarship program that I could either get through academics, through athletics, or through the military. So I found out from the recruiter that they had what was called a split option program. So I could go to my basic training in between my junior year and my senior year of high school while everybody else was on summer break. So I signed up for that, and you could do that with parental consent because, again, I was not an adult yet. I was 17 years old. So my parents agreed, signed off, and I finished my junior year of high school. And the next day I was on a plane to Fort Benning, Georgia, where I went through basic training, combat training.
Mm.
I finished that and I came back. I was just about a week late for my senior year of high school to start. But as I'm sure we can all appreciate, senior year is, first of all, the first week is usually orientation. And by your senior year, you got the run of things. You understand how the building goes and so forth, and passing out textbooks. So I didn't miss much, but came back about a week late, started school, and finished my high school year, had a graduation party, and then was back on a plane the very next day after my graduation party back to Fort Benning, Georgia, where I completed my advanced individual training in combat infantry school and then on to Ranger school. Um, while I was at Fort Benning, I remember watching the Rangers on site there walk around in their berets. Back in that day, the Rangers were the only ones who wore a black beret, so they stood out, and as a young kid, you recognize them. And when they came into the mess hall, or when they were on base, in moving around the campus, everybody kind of stood back and took notice. So it was something I was drawn to, and I wanted to understand more about them and be a part of. So
Wow.
I actually ended up going into that and being accepted into the Ranger Regiment there. From that point, I had started school also simultaneously and attached to a troop command battalion up in Springfield, Illinois, so that I could go to Illinois State University, and started in psychology. I wanted to be a sports psychologist and travel with teams. And I was convinced that was why I love sports. And I figured being a psychologist would make me a professional, would be in a professional field. I took my
Mhm.
first psychology course my freshman year, and I hated it. I was terrible at it. I found out very quickly I am very much a realist. I had a hard time seeing the abstract of it, and got a little argumentative with my professor, and school had always come pretty easy for me. So it was the first time that I was finding challenges. So I
Mhm.
took a step back and found out that the Career Services Center had this test called the Figgy test.
Mm.
It was a 4 to 6 hour test, and it tested everything from your aptitude, your academic aptitude, as well as the things that you enjoy. So I
Mhm.
took that test, everything came back: construction, architecture, engineering, construction management. And which was interesting because all through junior high and high school, my job when I wasn't playing sports was I was a carpenter building homes for my
Oh,
buddy's
wow.
dad, who owned a construction company. So I found out very quickly what they had for an undergrad program and went into architectural engineering and construction management, got my undergrad there with that, went on to get my master's, my MBA from U of I. And, you know, because of my military background, I had a strong social capability. It
Mm,
was easy for me to talk to people. I enjoy people. Part of my SIGI test was, do you like to work inside? Do you like to work outside? Do you want to talk to people? Would you prefer to work alone? Mine
mm,
is from a social aspect. Well, most of my peers graduating in an engineering and an architecture background are very introverted, so they didn't have that.
mm,
So marrying my sociability with my academics and then mixing in there my military experience, it really put me in a place of where I was able to advance quickly. I was put into leadership roles. I was able to provide structure to organizations, and I also could go out and I could speak with a client, or I could go and speak with trades, and I could communicate from both ends and kind of be a conduit between the two to allow for the integration of information to pass intelligently.
mhm.
So, I went on, I ended up opening up an office for a company out of Springfield, Illinois. I opened up a one-man office so they could do hospital work for Decatur Memorial Hospital. I was the business development person. I was my own secretary, my own project manager, my own estimator. I sold my own work and did it all at a little storefront and grew it up to about $15 million worth of work. And
Wow.
and then decided to come back to where I grew up, back towards Rockford, and took a role with a different company after I had grown that one, as a director of operations in
Mhm,
Northwest Chicago suburbs. Continue to help that company grow. And I had an employee who was fantastic in his estimating skills, his analytics of understanding drawings, his ability to formulate numbers and assemble a quality estimate were great. But his job and his role for me was a project manager. And he had attended seminary. He was a incredible man of faith, good character, but just had a very difficult time holding subcontractors in Chicago accountable. He
mm,
lacked teeth is a good
mm.
my way of always, how I would kind of verbalize it to him.
I get that.
Yeah. So he lacked the ability to tell them you're wrong and here's how you're going to do it. And your contract states this. And so I ended up having to part ways with him, but I continued to mentor him. And he came to Phoenix Builders. Uh,
Wow.
I kind of gave him some advice to go into a chief estimator role and focus on that. He did that. He found success here. And the founders of Phoenix Builders were in the process of trying to figure out what their succession plan was going to be. And this individual who I was mentoring said, you guys really should talk to Josh. He's had 2 other companies that he's worked for and he's helped to grow. And I don't believe he's in a good situation there to take over that company, although I know that's one of his goals. So they contacted me. I came and I met, and Phoenix was about $8 million a year. Very small company, family owned, a lot of family members in it. Great customer base, good bones, but lacking some standard operating procedure, lacking some sales and marketing plans, and some setting those lofty goals, smart goals. So I had a conversation with them and said, why don't we give this 2 years? Make sure that I'm an individual that you want to work with, and you're a company that I want to invest my life in. And if that works, we will structure a buy-sell agreement. We'll
Mm,
attach a valuation based on a multiplier of EBITDA. Okay. And in that, I said, here's the benefit for you is we will set a trigger point for sale. If you're at 8 million now, we'll set a trigger point for sale at $20 million, okay, of revenue. And in turn, going market rate as a multiplier for a quality construction company was somewhere between, let's say, 4.5 and 6.5. I said, my multiplier for the purchase is going to be 2.5.
mm,
But I'm increasing your earning potential because I'm the one who's going to be responsible. I'm going to come in as a president and I'm going to grow the business. Okay.
mhm,
I'm going to grow my purchase price, but I'm also going to grow the value of what I'm purchasing. On top of that, we're going to take a portion of those profits And rather than me bonus and so forth, I'm going to defer that. I'm going to defer it as my equity into the company. So
Mm,
the bank will
smart.
like that because I'll have instant equity. It'll be equity that I have created as the role of president,
Mhm.
and we'll have a discounted multiplier of EBITDA, but I'm actually going to send you off into retirement with more income than what you have the potential of making now. So it was a great opportunity. We did that. We closed on that sale. They sailed off in the sunset into retirement. Well, one of them did. One actually remained on as an employee of mine and runs the painting company that I have here.
Wow.
That's kind of my journey of how I've got to this point professionally and where I'm at. So I'm the president and CEO of Phoenix Builders. I also own a commercial carpentry company called Kodiak Building Solutions, and I also own a commercial finishes company called Teschner Painting.
Fantastic. So do you do both residential and commercial, or are you in both spaces?
No, so the only residential work we do would be large scale multifamily. We're strictly a commercial contractor.
Okay. Wonderful. What a journey. How
Yeah.
smart. What a smart move.
It's worked out. It's only smart because it worked out, right? It's like anything else. That which gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
I think we had a very open and honest conversation at the front end of it, of what it looked like. It had to be something that was beneficial for both parties. It
Yeah.
was something that was going to take give on both sides. It took give on my part because of the time and commitment and deferring income I could have got by going to work for another company, because I'm deferring that into equity. And it took give on their side because they had to put their trust in me that I could deliver on what I said I could do. And on
Mhm.
top of that, it took give on their part to accept a decreased multiplier of EBITDA for their valuation. But
Wonderful.
I think when it was all said and done, everybody walked away very happy.
Well, I think that the reason it became successful so quickly too is the strategic. I mean, not it was a smart strategic move, and it was benevolent at the heart of it. I mean, you were looking for a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that always multiplies.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the lessons you've learned along the way that you would like to share with us?
Well, I'd say one of the lessons I've learned is I've had some poor bosses in my career. I've had some poor leaders in my career.
Mm,
And I've tried to devote a lot of my energy and my time into growing myself as the best leader that I can be,
hmm
and on multiple fronts: friend, educator, team member, accountability factor,
hmm
motivator.
hmm
And one of the things I'm super proud of, we're going into our third consecutive year here of being voted Chicago's best and brightest places to work. And
mm,
that's something it's interviews that are done outside by an independent third party of our staff, and nothing to do with leadership and ownership.
hmm
And we continue to win and win that on a large scale. So I'm very proud of that. However, on the flip side of that, some lessons learned for me during that journey is I was so concerned about being a good leader that I oftentimes would hold people longer, either in roles or just in general as part of the team, longer than what I should.
hmm
Oftentimes to the detriment of other team members, and oftentimes at the detriment of them, and at the
hmm
detriment of us as an organization. And that's something as I've gotten older and have been in this career longer, that I understand that sometimes you just don't have the right person in the right seat, and that's okay.
hmm
And you just need to part ways. And similar to the way my story started by coming to Phoenix, with letting that individual go because he was a great individual, had a good skill set. It just wasn't the right individual and right skill set for the role that I had.
hmm
And I have to be more cognizant of that with where we're at.
Absolutely. That's such an important lesson for every leader. What do you think? What do you consider not so good leadership traits?
I think lack of emotional maturity. I think that you have to, as a leader, oftentimes we are faced with all the things that are going wrong,
hmm
right? We're not, your day isn't getting eaten up with all the positive things that are going on. Typically,
hmm
when your staff or your team members or your consultants, your clients, et cetera, are coming to you, by that time, the reason they're coming to you is because things have fallen apart.
mm
That is not the time for a leader to lose emotional control and lack emotional maturity. It's the time for them to show emotional strength,
Mhm.
show resolve, and be that source of solidarity, be that source of stability for your team and for your clients and your consultants and so forth to come to you, and you to be that grounding spot where you can start offering some opportunities from an outside look and start bringing some structure and bringing some strength back to the situation and try to find a resolution.
I love that answer, Josh, because it's so important. Emotional intelligence is 90% of leadership, and for all the reasons you've mentioned. Because in order to recognize things, even in order to have perspective, to see things ahead of them blowing up, takes strong emotional intelligence, because when you're triggered in any way, shape, or form, all your executive function, all your ability to discern, the sympathetic system is in charge, and you're in the limbic brain, and not making good decisions. Or even the ability to discern what's going on, to even see. So I think it's so important to have that, and because emotional intelligence is not something that's taught. It's a rare quality that a leader is equipped with everything that they need. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not, by no means am I perfect. I still have mistakes. I'm human and my emotions can get the best of me as well. It's having the ability to self-reflect and know when those emotions are getting out of control and just take a step back. I have to remind myself, God gave me two eyes and two ears, and he gave me one mouth. There's a reason for that. He wants me to watch and he wants me to listen twice as much as he wants me to speak. So I try to remind myself of that.
Yeah, it's good for us as leaders to know that, right? That's funny.
Right. Mhm.
I love that. So what are some of the challenges you currently experience as a leader that has gone through so much of life already, and you're young still? So what are
Mhm.
some of the challenges you face today?
Challenges I face today are probably more just along the lines of knowing what I need to feel comfortable with letting go of and empowering my people and not needing to be in every facet of what's going on. We are in a tremendous growth period right now, and it's exciting. It's encouraging, and it pulls out in me that entrepreneur spirit and the worker spirit of how I got here. And I want to dive in and I want to be a piece of it so bad. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes I'm on the sidelines at the football game.
Mhm.
I just want to get out there and I want to hold the ball and I want to run too.
Yeah.
It's not my job anymore. My job is to sit on the sideline, and my job is to see from an overlook standpoint, see how the game is progressing and see where the strengths are and see where the weaknesses are, and move the players and the pieces and the strategies around appropriately to win that game. My role is not to be in the middle of it where I can't see everything that's going on. So that's one of the struggles I'm finding myself in now, is knowing when to take a step back and allow the people that I've placed into these roles to do their jobs and to spread their wings and to be able to be successful in their roles.
Yeah, and in your defense, I mean, I think that that's a difficult thing to do for somebody who's been in the thick of it for so long.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
I didn't come into this role by being an investor and buying a successful company. I
right.
came into this role by growing the company off of the sweat of my brow
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I get that. And it's hard to just kind of sit back now and watch the people. How many people do you have on your team?
55.
Wow. And how many people on your leadership team?
Uh, 6.
Okay. Okay. So that's a good size. That's a really good size.
Well, there's 6 there, and I guess I should add in our self-performing divisions, there's another 4 there, so probably realistically 10.
10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good too. Yeah. Yeah. So what's in the future for you guys?
Growth into Florida. That's our next big step. So I need to take some grueling state licensure tests coming up here in April and May. And we are going to be opening up an office down in Sarasota, Florida, because we have some substantial clients there that are growing in that market, and we want to serve those clients locally. So that's the next big step there.
Fantastic. What kind of things, give us an example of some buildings and some structures that you guys build.
Sure. So we have a wide gamut. When I came to Phoenix, and that was part of our growth strategy. When I came to Phoenix, they predominantly were a tenant improvement. Did build outs for restaurants, heavy restaurant and some retail. Uh, that was prior to the crash of 2008 and so forth. So
Mhm.
with 2008 coming up, I diversified us and started to search more into the senior living market because
Okay.
following the generational trends, the baby boomers were in need of, we had an overabundance in the market of independent living. And
Mm,
as all of these entities, companies like Brookdale Senior Living, HCR Manor Care, et cetera, large senior living providers throughout the country, needed to have continuum of care where when someone would move from an independent living, basically an apartment, into an assisted living, and then from assisted living, they might need skilled nursing facility or dementia and memory care.
mhm,
Well, there was an increase of demand in the market for that dementia and memory care and skilled nursing facility, as well as assisted living, but we had a plethora of resource in independent living. So we
mhm.
partnered with Brookdale Senior Living out of Nashville, Tennessee, and continued to build a lot for them here in the Midwest, growing that market, and that grew into other customers as well. So from there, that's kind of a mixture of hospitality meets healthcare.
Okay.
We do a lot of ground up storage work. That's a big portion of our portfolio. So the big precast built up concrete buildings you see along the 90 corridor and some of the industrial parks and so forth. We do a lot of that. High-end car storage. We do a lot of healthcare. We're not building hospitals, but we do a lot of outpatient clinics, dialysis, urology, imaging centers, fast track, emergency cares, projects like that. We also still do a lot of retail and do a lot of healthcare, although
Okay.
that's not a big line share of the dollar revenue piece of our business. A lot of our larger scale revenue business is going to be hospitality, hotels, multifamily,
Mm.
industrial and mixed use.
Wow. That's a big,
Yeah,
that's
it's a big
a big
range. And
range. Yeah.
that's intentional.
Yeah.
Uh, And the reason being is because as the market fluctuates, each of these markets continue to dip and decline where other markets increase. When the market was slow and the restaurant industry, people weren't going out to eat, one thing in the retail market that did increase were some of your lower price point or your discount bargain type retail stores, your Dollar Generals, also your automotive stores like AutoZones and O'Reilly's and Advanced Autos. And the reason being is because people were no longer they weren't making the decision to just if the car had an issue they'd take it into the shop and they'd let them fix it and pay for it. Now people were going and they're doing a little research on their own, they're watching YouTube videos, they're ordering materials, or they're driving down to the local Advanced Auto and they're getting parts and they're fixing it at home. So
Wow.
just following what happens in those market trends and then diversifying has allowed us to deal with those ebbs and flows and yet still continue to grow our client base.
Yeah, I love your perspective and your forward thinking. A lot of leaders I speak to try to niche into a market, and though that is a good strategy, but I love in this kind of the ups and downs of economy and how you diversify and give yourself a nice range to work in, so that you're successful no matter what the market is doing. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, and because obviously innovation, it's so fast paced, right? So as innovation changes, demand changes in the market as well. And the last thing I want to do is, let's look at it this way: your big box malls or your big
Mhm.
mall facilities.
Yeah.
If we were a mall contractor or a large big box retail builder, well, that Amazon has done damage to that market sector tremendously, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
our buying structure as a nation and as a world economy has changed.
Tremendously.
So if you had pigeonholed yourself into that niche market, although it was fantastic and it was all feast then, you're in a famine state now. And you're
Yes.
trying to pivot after how long of being in the industry, you're trying to pivot into new markets that
Mhm.
your peer competition has already established themselves in, and that's difficult.
Mhm.
So by us working in multiple market sectors, it allows us to be more adaptable to those market changes and innovations within the market.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. You also are a purpose driven leader, which I love and respect so much about you, Josh. And we have the same passion about helping our veterans, you yourself being a veteran. Tell us about your non for profit and how, what gave rise to that. And tell us a little bit about how you serve our men and women in uniform.
Sure. So, well, I sit on three boards. I have one nonprofit of my own called the Sparta Project, and what we do is we put on cohorts, week-long cohorts throughout the country, servicing both first responders and combat veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress. You know, we are focusing on the unseen injuries. We're focusing on those moral injuries. We're focusing on shame and guilt and spiritual industry and the underlying causes of self-medication and self-destructive behaviors. You know, since the dawn of civilization, warriors have always had a ritual and a culture to detoxify from war. So Sparta Project, what we're doing is we're providing a spiritual approach in the absence of those rituals. And we're doing it over a 5-day spread. We create an emotionally and physically safe environment for a 5-day period for these warriors in a community with other warriors that gives them instant credibility and a sense of community. And we begin to explore their personal experiences in previously unexamined ways. The second part of that, you know, there's times for medication, but we're trying to find other contemplative, mindful activities. We start to transition the warrior into a new and healing community with other warriors. We're doing that through meditation. We're doing that through fly fishing. We do that through equine therapy. We employ an adventure to just, you know, kind of an adventurous obstacle courses. We want to stimulate that warrior's re-engagement into the adventure of life, feeling that sense of fear. You know, maybe they're on a high rope course and feel that sense of fear. It makes them feel alive. It brings back that sense of who they are, you know, because oftentimes these warriors are suffering because they feel a lack of excitement in their civilian life. And Sparta can offer the facilitation of activities like ropes courses, you know, in a proprietary, unique way that helps the warrior to experience exhilaration in a safe environment that we control.
Mm.
You know, each of our activities, they're all designed to have a maximum impact in creating trust and also help-seeking behavior among the peer support group that's there with our shepherds and with our clinical staff, as well as the other participants.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Wow. When did you find that organization?
Well, I was actually, so I sit on the other two boards I sit on. I sit on a board called Take a Vet Fishing, a day of giving back. So all that is it's veterans come in different areas throughout the country. We assemble fishing guides to provide boats, and we take them on the water. We come back, we share a meal and with prayer and kind of talk about our thankfulness for these veterans. That's it. That's the extent of that organization. I also have another board that I'm the vice president on, and we have a show on Discovery Channel going into our 9th season called Operation Healing Heroes.
Mm.
That show started out, it was Operation Fishing Freedom, and we started it to share World War II veteran stories out on the water. It kind of looked like a fishing show, but really it just happened to be while fishing. The whole premise of the show is to share the stories of World War II veterans because we're losing them at such a fast rate. And a lot of times these men and women did not want to share their stories and their traumas and fears and experiences with family members out of either shame or just not a lack of desire to, or a lack of trust again.
Mm.
But having somebody who could come and speak to them who had also served in combat, there was a sense of openness there. So it started there. It's grown from that into every other area of conflict. And we're also not just on the water now. We have other sponsors, and we do horseback riding, we do RV trips and UTVing. And so it gave us an opportunity. We changed the name to Operation Healing Heroes. But the founder of that organization, Jay Garstecki, actually had reached out to me about 4 or 5 years ago. And Sparta Project was in a lot of trouble. They had issues financially, they had issues with management structure, and it was going to dissolve.
Mm-hmm.
He came to me and he said, Josh, I cannot tell you how many lives this organization has changed, and it's going to die. And I can't think of anybody more suited to take this over and to bring it back to life and make it thrive and make it more successful than it has been than you. And I was extremely humbled to hear that, but I was also I was extremely motivated, you know,
Mm.
because it was something that obviously means a lot to me. I've had my own journey. through my combat experience and walking my own journey through post-traumatic stress, and found ways to turn those stresses into motivators to fuel me, to push me into success in life. And with my love and my family and my sons and my wife and the community around me. And
Mhm.
so it gave me an opportunity to pour that back into other veterans. So I accepted that position, and we are successful in this organization. We've grown tremendously. I've been able to bring in fantastic people. And then I can also use my company, Phoenix Builders, as a financial platform and as a admin and overhead resource platform to help fuel Sparta Project to continue to grow and provide resources for those who suffer from post-traumatic stress.
Wow, I'm so impressed with you, Josh. Thank you for everything that you do. It's amazing.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
difference that you make, the lives that you change and add to. That's incredible. That's incredible. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
What is, with all of this experience and all of the lives that you've touched, what are some of the lessons that you would like to, what are some of the advice you want to give to people, to young entrepreneurs and leaders, and even some established leaders? What are some of the advice you have for us?
I'd say the biggest thing is, again, going back to two eyes, two ears, and one mouth, listen.
Mm,
Listen to others, open yourself up for networking, open yourself up to learn from everyone that you can around you. Understand that although we are in leadership positions, or if you're an up and coming entrepreneur, we oftentimes can have this sense of indestructibility,
mhm,
indestructibility, and this sense of fearlessness. And those are all good things to have, but it
mhm,
also needs to come with a sense of humility and a
mm,
sense of eagerness to pull from those around you and build those around you that can help support you in your growth. Because, you know, I can lift so much weight by myself, but I can lift a heck of a lot more weight with good people around me, all helping to carry that load. So I would encourage others to, continue to utilize and place value in those relationships that they have around them.
love it. Love it. Listening is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people think that, oh, I'm a good listener, until you really learn how to listen. I think it's really powerful to listen empathetically. It's a skill that most leaders feel. I mean, we feel like, oh, I can hear and listen. It's natural to think that, but to really actively listen to someone is really powerful, because you hear things that normally goes without being noticed.
Right.
Right. Yeah. It's just when you tune into somebody, I think I call it dialing in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dialing into the person and really listening, because they say so much more than the words they speak.
And that comes from everyone. I'd say one of the things as I continue to get older here, Kathy, is it's not just the peers around me and the other entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm part of leadership groups and peer groups of other founders and CEOs and owners. And I'll tell you, I not that I don't get good value there, but I get just as much value sometimes. So I coach jujitsu and Muay Thai also, and I have students that as young as 4 years old, and then I also have my sons. My sons range, well, my youngest will be 9 tomorrow. My oldest will be 21 next month. So I've got a
Wow.
range there, but sometimes I get just as much out of listening to them, actively listening to them, and hearing how they're emotionally processing things. Because a lot of times with kids, they don't have the other motivators that we do as adults. They're not mapping how they're talking to me. They don't have an ulterior objective on what they're sharing with me. It's raw.
Yeah.
So I try to be open, and I try to listen and hear what's going on there, and then offer, my input as well. But don't I would say to other leaders and up and coming entrepreneurs, don't assume that all of the knowledge you're going to get is going to come from people who are above you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and their filter. What I love about the young, and I have a 20-year old, almost 21. He'll be 21 at the end of April. I think that um, our children, their vision and their perception, their filter is clearer than ours.
Mm-hmm.
to your point. I think that that's so beautiful that you listen to your kids. And yeah, and all the points, I agree. It's it's a powerful thing, to be human is really a powerful expression of life. It's a precious expression of life. And when we really lean in and feel full-heartedly, it's really a beautiful thing. It can be successful, joy, bringing joy and love into your life experience, right?
Yeah, it's a blessing, right? Like how amazing are we as people? Like your story is so much different than anyone else's.
Exactly.
I'm sure your story in your life, it's been wrought with joys and sadness and triumphs and some tribulation, but all of those things are what made you. And if somebody could just sit down sometimes and listen to what that story is and truly listen,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I mean, just God's blessed us all with these super unique lives, and it's nice to be able to get to hear from other people and what their journey has been like.
Exactly. I mean, that's what given rise to this podcast, is because of that. I've had the pleasure and honor of working with so many wonderful leaders, and their stories are just incredible, and yours included. I mean, you're just amazed. I mean, I'm amazed of all the things you've accomplished in your life, and you're still so young, so much more to do.
And I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what's the next portion of my journey look like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's nice that you have this. You're moving to Sarasota, and
Mhm.
that journey, I'm sure, is going to be exciting. It's going to be a whole new culture, but also, you can do great things there, and your family is growing. You have all different range of kids in different stages of their lives. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. How would you describe your authentic self?
Mm. So my authentic self is I am an absolute warrior at spirit. I truly am. Um, and that word warrior for me applies to a lot of different facets.
Mm,
Physically, emotionally, spiritually, and professionally. I am I'm a warrior for God, in my faith. I'm a warrior for my wife.
mm,
My job is to be the absolute best husband that I can be for her, to be her best friend, to be her source of confidence, to be her source of support, and no matter what, to never allow her to feel a sense of insecurity in the relationship that she has with me, because that's my focus. So I'm a
mm,
warrior for my children. My
mm,
commitment to them and growing them to turn them into good men, especially from the standpoint of, I don't have daughters. I have four sons. So I feel an inherent sense of need as the father, as another male in the house, that it's my job to set the example of who they're going to be and to be open and to be honest and share with them and let them see that I'm not perfect and let them see that sometimes I do lose my emotional control, my emotional strength, right?
mm,
But there's ways that you can recognize that. There's ways you can pivot from that, and ways you can improve on that. And
mm,
it starts with being humble. It starts with being apologetic and accepting that, and then
mm,
moving past it and making sure that you improve on it. I'm a warrior in my business because I want the absolute best that we can do. And I can truly say that's not a financially driven objective. That's
mm,
an objective because I care about the services that we deliver for our customer. I care about the quality of environment I provide to our staff and
mm,
advancement opportunity. That's why the best and brightest role for me, I constantly talk about it because it really fills my love tank.
mm,
And I'm a warrior for our vendors, our subcontractors that work for us, because they know when they do a job with Phoenix Builders that we have their interest in mind and we want them to grow and succeed.
mm,
And then outside of that, I'm a physical warrior as well. I've spent a big portion of my life in the military, serving in a special operations unit and seeing things that the average person, thankfully, will never have to experience. And that's
mm,
generated in me an appreciation for life, an appreciation for what we have in this country, an
mm,
appreciation for what we have in our relationships here as well, both internally with our family and externally with our outside relationships, professionally and personally. And I continue that warrior spirit on with my martial arts career. You know, I continue to pass that down. I coach jujitsu, I teach Muay Thai, and I coach Muay Thai. I still compete in these as well. I've been fortunate to win 2 national championships, and now I have a young son at 12 years old who's won 2 state championships in jujitsu. And that warrior spirit again is a good foundation for them to build on, and it builds self-confidence, and that helps to bleed over into other areas of your life. So I think if I were to sum up who my authentic self is, I'm an absolute warrior.
Love it. Love it. I love it. What a beautiful expression of life you are, Josh.
Thank you.
And I love your masculine energy, you know, and I love that you're raising your family, you're prioritizing your wife, your kids, and who you are as a leader. I just love everything about you. What a great example for all of us to learn from. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Kathy, I can't tell you how appreciative I am of you inviting me to your podcast and having me on here. It's been fun. And sometimes it's nice to sit back and reflect on what your journey has been like, because it gives us an appreciation for where we are and how far we've come.
Exactly. And you've been generous in sharing your lessons, your challenges. I think it just, you know, I think we all need to hear that and see and the progression, the evolution of who you are today and all the things that you've gone through and what's important to you. I really appreciate you highlighting all the things that we can learn. I think you've pointed out some critical things in both leadership and life. So I thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.